Hey, what's up guys? Radku here, back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today is going to be Virtual World. Now, this deck is super cool and actually really powerful. It has a lot of potential, despite the fact that it really isn't at that competitive level yet. I still think that this deck could be abused a lot in the future if it got just a little bit more support. So without further ado, let's jump right into the deck. And quick side note, again, go check out that Discord server, Dueling Central. I might put it down in the description. I might even have it pinned in the description. Who knows? Yeah. So 3 copies of Virtual World Mahime Lulu. This is the best card on the deck, and this deck has 2 special gimmicks. One, it locks you into rank 3 or higher monsters, rank 3/level 3 or higher monsters. And then almost all of the monsters have this amazing special summon effect. If this card is in your hand, you can target one virtual world card you control. Send one virtual world card with a different type, monster, spell, or trap from your deck to the graveyard. And if you do special summon this card, then they have a special effect. This effect is almost the same for all the virtual world cards except for one. So it's really, really good. Then they'll have a secondary effect. Then you can target one. This one is then you can add one virtual world card of the third type from your deck to your hand. So the thing is that you have a monster in your hand. You can target one of these 3. So you'll target a card on the field, you'll send a card to the graveyard. Let's say you have Chuchi on the field and you send a Quilong to the grave. That means you can add a monster to your hand, which is really easy to abuse in this deck, despite the fact that it's a hard once per turn. It's really, really good. Then I played 3 copies of Virtual World Zihai Juji. I'm gonna ignore that effect. And if you do special summon this card, then during the end phase of this turn, add one virtual world card from your graveyard to your hand, except for Gigi. So this card's really powerful. Despite the fact that it's a bit slower, it's actually pretty good. Another unique thing about this deck is that it has worm monsters and it has psychic monsters. All the psychics are wind monsters and all the worm monsters are earth. Not really an important thing, but it's kind of weak to like cards like Goes and Match and stuff, but it's fine. Then I play 3 copies of Virtual World Kirin Lily. So you want to max out on all your Virtual World cards. So these are basically all of them. And you want to do that just so that you have the versatility to go into a lot of your combo plays. Ignoring that effect, you can send one virtual world card of the third type from your deck to the graveyard. So Mahime Lulu can add cards to your hand of the third type. Then Lily can send cards of the third type to the graveyard, which is actually really good because all 3 actually gain advantage based off of if it's sent to the graveyard, which is actually really easy to abuse and get some really good advantage off of. Then I played 3 copies of Virtual World Roshi Lao Lao, ignoring that effect. Then you can special summon one Virtual World monster from your graveyard in defense position with a different name than the card sent to the graveyard, but negate its effects. So, really good effect. It's basically a free special summon from the graveyard. And despite the fact that this deck cannot do link spam, I urge that very heavily. This deck cannot use link summoning, which kind of hinders some of the potential combo plays, but it's fine because this deck has great XC spam and synchro spam. So even though you can't use that other monster you special summoned for link plays, you can still use it for some synchro plays pretty easily. Then I play 3 copies of Virtual World Hime Nyan. So this card is your prime target to send to the graveyard with all your other Virtual World cards, and it's the only one with a different effect. If a level 3 monster is normally special summon from your field while this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon it as a tuner, but banish it when it leaves the field. Also, for the rest of the turn, this card, you can only special summon level / rank 3. And then if this card is banished, you can target one other banished card, shuffle it into the deck. So this can actually help you renew some of your cards, which is actually pretty good. This deck does do a bit of banishing, and it has some cards that can take advantage of that banishing, but it's not like as heavy as like card decks like Thunder Dragon, where you gain advantage off of cards like Left Arm Offering and stuff. So continuing from there to the hand traps, 3 Ash and 3 Ghost Ogre, then 3 Inperm. So the reason I didn't play Nibiru, despite the fact that Nibiru would be pretty good, is because it's really, really hard to get over the Nibiru token at this point, because like even if your opponent negates it or doesn't negate it, and you have that huge Nibiru token on the field, I mean, you would have a bit of an issue getting over it. Like, sure, you have cards like your literal Macrocosmo in QB, but that would literally banish all their cards instead of sending them to the graveyard, which is really, really powerful. But the problem is that even if you use Nibiru, I don't think your deck would have the power to get over it. There are cards you can add to get over your Nibiru token, but I just didn't want to take the risk. You could run it, it would be really good, but I just decided not to. Continuing from there, 1 upstart, because just free draw. 1 emergency teleport. Actually backtracking to the upstart, emergency teleport and upstart goblin both really, really help this deck's consistency, because the thing is that you can brick with having too many high level monsters in your hand, because you do have 6 high levels in your deck. So you might brick by not drawing into enough low levels / spells or traps, which means that having cards like Emergency Teleport that can just special summon the level 3 from the deck, not negating its effects, but that doesn't really matter, means that you can pretty easily use that to go into some plays, because that means you'll unbrick your hand, and Upstart is just great for drawing cards. 1 Called by the Grave, because this deck sends to the graveyard quite a bit, and getting ashed is kind of dangerous in this deck, because it requires ordering. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, because I needed a solid 1 of, and some spell and trap removal is really good in this deck. 1 Monster Reborn, because even though this deck does use banishing quite a bit, you're still going to have a ton of monsters in the graveyard, which is really good. Then for the Virtual World Gate cards, 3 Virtual World Gate Quilong. So this card isn't necessarily good for its effect, but it's actually really good just because it's a continuous virtual world spell card. So that means you can use your virtual world monsters to gain advantage by targeting the Quilong and sending either a monster like Nanayan or whatever you call it, or Chuchi to the grave to gain more advantage. Plus, it's way better than the traps, because your monster's effects aren't quick effects, so they can't special summon during your opponent's turn. So you can just activate this from the hand and then go into some pretty sick combo plays from there. I'm not going to take the time to read this card's effect. You can read it on your own time. It's not very good for its effect, but it's still a decent effect. You know what? I am going to read it. You can target 1 banish virtual world card from your graveyard, then target 1 face-up monster on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Then you can banish, if this card leaves the field, you can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 virtual world monster from your deck to your hand, then send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, which means that you can send like this or even Chuchi to the grave to gain some pretty sick advantage, and then hard once per turn. So pretty good effect, and pretty ripe for abuse if you want to just use that as the only target for your virtual world cards. Continuing from there, 3 virtual world city Qualoon. This card is actually really, really good, but it's only good if you get to your final effects. So place one Virtual World Gate card from your deck face up in your spell or trap card zone. Then you can apply any of these effects in sequence based on the number of Virtual World Gate cards you control. So since all the Virtual World Gate cards are continuous, they'll stay on the field, and you can use this card pretty well. All Virtual World cards gain 200 attack this turn. 3 or more send the top 3 cards of your deck, or special summon up to 4 Virtual World monsters with different names from your extra deck. Super powerful. Plus, it doesn't return them, and it doesn't negate their effects. So that means you could special summon 3 QB, and you could even special summon one of your other ones. QB is probably the most powerful, but it's so good. Like, you at that point, you would be able to overlay into a calamities, and then you'd still have a QB on the field that's literally a walking macrocosmo. And the fact that you would have 3 on the field is kind of hard, but the ability to just use that so easily is really, really good. Then 2 Pot of Desires, because this is just instant gratification. This deck doesn't really have single cards that it really needs. You might risk banishing your Quilongs or even your cities, but it's not a ton of a risk because you play 3 copies of both. And 1 Pot of Avarice, because this deck does Synchro Spam, and being able to use that is okay. Like I said, this deck does use banishing quite a bit, so just think about that. You might want to cut this out for another draw card, maybe another copy of Desires, but yeah, it's okay. Then I play 3 copies of Virtual World Gate Chi-Chi. You can target 1 face-up card on the field, shuffle 2 of your banished Virtual World cards with different names from each other into the deck, then destroy that card. So some destruction, it is targeting, so it's okay. Then during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Virtual World monster you control, increase or decrease its level by 3. So it does have a decent graveyard effect that can basically get you into an instant QB, but it's not as good as your other ones. You don't want to brick a ton with this card in your hand, but it's pretty easy to just use this as a sitting target to summon out your other Virtual World monsters, or you can just leave this in the graveyard to banish later to go into a QB. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the main deck. It's already said infinite impermanence. This main deck is actually really solid and fairly consistent with all the draw spells that I put in here. I'm kind of sad that we couldn't use Allure of Darkness, but it's fine because even if we could, you don't get a ton better than this. This is like my optimal build. If there's anything you think I should put in this deck, I know there's that other psychic card that you can use, but I thought that it bricked way too much. Like literally everybody's saying you should buy that card up, which I believe you should too, because it'll be really good if this deck can get a bit more consistency up. And yeah, continuing from there, 3 copies of Virtual World QB Shen. So literally any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead. Then you can only use each effect once per turn. When your monster declares an attack, you can return 1 banished monster to the owner's graveyard. Then during your main phase, except the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish 2 monsters from your graveyard with different original types. So you have your psychic worm / earth wind monsters, which is pretty good to use, with different types. Then special summon them from your graveyard. So but pretty good effect. You can use this to go into a Cloud Castle turn 2, and pretty easily swing into your opponent with that, or go into a True King of All Calamities to get a pretty good lockdown. Then I play 2 copies of Virtual World Beast Jui. I'm not sure how to pronounce a lot of these names. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. So you could literally just leave this on the field unless your opponent negates it. It's really, really good just because of that effect. You could literally just set it in defense position and just pass for turn, and your opponent wouldn't be able to do anything since it's not an activated effect. While you have 2 or more monsters in your graveyard with the same original type and attribute but different names, then you can banish 2 cards from your graveyard with the same original type and attribute but different names and target 1 card on the field, send it to the graveyard. Non-destruction removal, really good. Plus, it's on a body that is indestructible, literally. So, really, really good effect. Unless you have a QB on the field, you can pretty effectively use this card. Then I play 1 copy of Trishula. This deck can go into a level 9 synchro really easily. So having that to snipe cards and then having True Kick of All Calamities, pretty good. 1 Cloud Castle for recovery. Turn 2, you'll be able to pretty effectively use this card. Synchro plays are really good on this deck, and then you're able to overlay into a True King of All Calamities, turn 2, and then just pass. That is why I play 2 copies of it. 1 copy of Virtual World Phoenix Fan. I didn't like this card as well in playtesting, and frankly, the Xyz monsters aren't as good as the Synchro monsters, but I still like them a lot. Once per turn, you can detach 2 Xyz material from this card, target 1 face-up card you control and 1 card in either player's graveyard, banish them. Then if 1 Xyz monster, if this Xyz summon card is destroyed by an opponent's card effect or by an attacking monster while in its owner's main monster zone or in its opponent's monster zone, you can special summon 2 virtual world cards with the same attribute. So kind of a convoluted effect, not as good protection as the level 6. So frankly, you can use this. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I still think it's pretty good. 2 copies of Virtual World Dragon Long. This is basically like the poster boy of the deck. It's really cool. So your opponent cannot target this card with card effects while it has Xyz material. Then when your opponent activates the effect of a monster who's with an attribute that is not on their field while they control a face-up monster, quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card, negate the activation. So some generic negation, pretty good. Not exactly the best form of negate, and it's kind of convoluted, but it's still pretty good, all things considered. 1 copy of Virtual World Shell Jaja. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material, then target 1 face-up monster you control. It cannot be destroyed by battle until the end of your opponent's turn. Then once per turn, after damage calc, if this card battled an opponent's monster while you have 2 or more monsters in your graveyard with the same original type and attribute as each other, you can banish that opponent's monster. So some banishing. The really I don't like this card as well is because really, if you're gonna do anything, you're gonna go into your synchro monsters, and this card is a good one of, but nothing more than that. 1 copy of Leviair Dragon, the Sea Dragon. So this card has banishing special summons, which is really, really good, which means that you can pretty easily abuse this card to special summon back your Lulu or even any of your other cards, because you're gonna be locked into these 3 cards, but it's fine because really those are the most cards you're gonna use. Then I play 2 copies of True King of All Calamities. One of the best lockouts in the deck, one of the best lockouts in the game, except for like Utopic Exile. But this card is really easy to use in this deck, especially since this deck can easily go into level 9 Xyz monsters. Plus, it has like one of the most powerful field spells that is basically a 1 card Macrocosmos / True King of All Calamities, which is really, really good. Then I play one copy of Fairy Knight Inger. This was actually not a bad card in play testing. I didn't go into it as much, and I thought, you know what, I just needed a level 6 target. That's better than Phoenix. So this card's actually really good. Once per turn, you can detach 2 Xyz material from this card. Return all other cards on the field to the hand. Your opponent cannot activate cards in response to this. So frankly, you could just go into this turn 1 and just sit on it, and then you can attack directly. And it's a spell speed 4, so your opponent can't really do anything. So yeah, it was actually a nice tech option. So that is pretty much it for the deck. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, let me know what you thought, and let me know if there's anything you would change about this. Would you go down on the number of virtual world cards? Because I figured that if you're gonna do anything in this deck, you need the virtual world cards to spam out. So and would you change the extra deck at all? Would you put any link monsters, despite the fact that they're pretty useless in this deck? Is there any fusion monsters you think would be good? Any other types of summoning methods that you think I should do? And would you change the spell lineup at all? So yeah, that's pretty much it, and I will see you in the next Yu-Gi-Oh video.